Good morning, Dan and Amy. We're not just playing Thunderstruck because we're all big Bobby Jenks fans here from the 2005 World Champion White Sox. Of course, you remember that, Amy. We're also remembering Malcolm Young, guitarist, one of the founding members of AC/DC.
Passed away over the weekend.
Yeah. All right, so speaking of Midwestern values, like the Chicago White Sox fandom, our friend Salena Zito has another good piece in the Washington Examiner. I like Salena because she tells stories nobody else in the D.C. press corps is telling. She doesn't suffer from the groupthink that afflicts so many. She tells a story about a county commissioner race in northwestern Pennsylvania, and amid all of the hoopla over the Democrats' success on election night a week ago with respect to Virginia and New Jersey, and of course Sandinista de Blasio being reelected in New York City, there's this county commissioner race in northwestern Pennsylvania, which you recall turned out to be sort of important in the presidential campaign, that may portend less than good news for Democrats amid all of the celebration of the more recent election results and what that supposedly means about Republican majorities in trouble in Congress come next year. For more on this topic and a few others, we're pleased to be joined now by Salena Zito, Washington Examiner reporter and also a columnist for the New York Post and contributor for CNN. Salena, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Happy 2 days before Thanksgiving.
Yes, exactly. Can't wait to go out for turkey because can't do that on a normal day. All right, Salena. So, northwestern Pennsylvania, Erie County Commissioner's race. Why should we care about this?
Well, Erie County is one of the counties in the United States that in 2016 flipped from an Obama county, a solid Obama county, a county that people voted for him twice in both 2008 and 2012, and flipped over to Republican. It is one of the counties that most reporters outside of Pennsylvania missed, and it is one of the counties that helped place President Trump into the White House. And so it's also one of the counties in my upcoming book, The Great Revolt, which you can get on Amazon, that I focus on in terms of watching the new Trump coalition. So this is a county that has always voted Democrat since the dawn of time. And it's an industrial town that has seen better times, very union sort of centric and working class, Catholic. And so to see it flip in 2016 sort of shocked everyone. So I'm paying attention to that county to see sort of the trends going forward. And so while the Democrats did win, her name is Kathy Delkamper. She was a one-term U.S. Congresswoman from that county who lost because, and she has said this herself, because of the health care vote. And she only won this seat by 300 votes. Now, I know that a win is a win is a win, but it's important to look at those numbers in that what does it tell us about the midterms and 2020? And to me, what it says is that the Democrats' power there is unraveling, and that this county is turning more Republican. It isn't there yet, but it's sort of like looking at Wisconsin right before 2009.
Yeah, I mean, it's so right before the Walker and Walker's election and Republicans taking over the legislature there, and it's important to I mean, this is tea leaf reading on both sides, which is fine, but it's important to point out because the Democrats have a real problem, and that is at present, both in terms of what happened in the presidential as well as looking at governors and state legislatures, they are a coastal party. And if they can't win states like Pennsylvania, they're not going to be a majority party in this country.
Right. And so in 2018, next year, we have a couple big races in Pennsylvania. And that includes the governor's seat, which is Tom Wolf, held by a Democrat, and also Bob Casey, who is a Democrat who's running for to hold his U.S. Senate seat. So if he is losing Erie County, or both men are losing Erie County, or then they Democrats have a hard time holding on to both of those seats because they need Erie County to offset. Well, I mean, they're always going to get the color counties of Philadelphia, but they need counties like Erie to offset the rural voters in the middle of the state who have become solidly Republican. And may I point out that they used to be solidly Democrat. One of the things people miss about Pennsylvania is that between 1996 and 2012, before the 2016 election, is that Pennsylvania became 0.4% more Republican every 4 years in every presidential election. Democrats shed votes, and nobody sort of paid attention to that because Democrats kept winning. You see the same thing with Erie County, and I think that getting that granular is an important task to do because it helps you understand what's going on in the country.
Now let's move to West Virginia. You wrote a great opinion piece in the New York Post about Trump's game-changing deal for people in that state, and as part of his 12-day trip to Asia.
Yeah. So Trump signed a memorandum of understanding, which is like a contract, but it's not totally binding in that there's wiggle room for both sides. But the memorandum of understanding is nearly $84 billion petrochemical shale deal, a cracker plant, if you will, and that's a big plant. You see them all over Texas. That is part of the shale, getting the shale from the ground to the products that in particular plastic products. And this is a game changer for a state that ranks always at the bottom in terms of poverty. And what was fascinating to me is when I saw the news come out, I saw a little blurb by, I think it was Reuters. Like, oh my God, this is a big deal. So I went down to West Virginia. It's not far from Western Pennsylvania, and I started talking to people, and nobody knew about it. And so I called a couple political scientists in the area. They didn't know about it. And so I thought that was sort of fascinating that this big deal wasn't talked or pumped up more by the more New York and Washington D.C. centric news, and also by the president. I think he should have been a lot more bragging about it. To be honest with you, it's a game changer for the people that live in that area.
Yeah, no question. And boy, I mean. Trump failing to brag.
Right.
How many times has that criticism been lodged against him? Yeah.
Who saw that coming? And also, I think this little nuance is also very important. It's a promise kept to people who have absolutely no power in electing a president. Nobody worries about if you're going to carry West Virginia. Nobody. It doesn't factor in the electoral map. Nobody goes and visits it, except Trump did. And so he is giving something to someone who can give him nothing back.
Well, now
I also think that was an important distinction.
Although maybe with one caveat, he comes back to West Virginia next year to campaign for the nominee against Joe Manchin and saying, remember, I'm the guy who got this deal for you, and I want this guy in the Senate.
That is true, although Manchin and Trump are pretty close. I often wonder if you see Manchin become an independent before you see Trump campaign against him. I am very skeptical of Trump ever campaigning against Joe Manchin.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. All right. Well, that's something to watch as well. Here's something else I wanted to ask you, because as someone who has the capacity for independent thought, which is relatively unique in the D.C. press corps, everybody's focused on Hillary Clinton and doing the reckoning with Bill Clinton, and the Democrats clearly want Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton to shuffle off the stage. They're a nuisance. They're not helpful. What about all of the Obama administration officials, including the president, former president, first lady himself? I mean, again, more stories yesterday. Jim Comey on a speaking tour about ethics. Lisa Jackson, who's the former EPA administrator, a.k.a. Richard Windsor. You want to talk about transparency. Who now works at Apple, of course she does, taking shots at the Trump administration for leadership in the world from the leading behind folks, as well as she's previously taken shots at them about transparency, again, her hiding emails and using nom de plumes to communicate. And then also a New York Times foreign correspondent saying basically that the Obama administration misled the American public on the strength of al-Qaeda in the run-up to the 2012 election. The more stories like this that continue to come out and their omnipresence, Obama and his surrogates, is that helpful to the Democrats going forward, trying to turn the page?
Well, here's the problems the Democrats face, and Republicans have been in this position before as well. But actually, I would argue in the lead up to 2016, they'd had this problem in that there's a vacuum in leadership. They don't have a bench.
Right.
And that is because they've lost a whole lot of seats down ballot, the places where you usually see emerging leaders in state houses, state senates, in Congress, and the U.S. Senate. They're trying to figure out who is their voice and or voices in the lead up to 2020. So you're going to see a jockeying of former Obama administration officials, but you're also going to see Obama and his wife also emerge as sort of leaders of the party. And this is an area where you can get in trouble with the Democrats because it can remind you of the things that caused you to lose in 2016. While President Obama remained personally popular, his policies did not. And so that is a constant reminder. And so I think we're going to see the Democrats go through. I'm going to make a prediction here. We're going to see them not only go through a lot of jockeying for power, we're also going to see a very similar lineup in 2020 that we saw with Republicans in 2017. In 2016. I expect there to be at least a dozen people, if maybe two, running for president.
Yeah, and the other thing Obama's and Clinton's do is they suck up all the oxygen in the room, so it's hard for
They
new
do.
voices to emerge. She is Salena Zito, Washington Examiner reporter, New York Post columnist, CNN contributor. The forthcoming book, Salena, is what? Tell us again.
It's on Amazon. It's called The Great Revolt. It's in pre-sale. Guys, buy tons of copies. It's a great book. It's about the New Populist Coalition. And I was out in your neck of the woods for a couple weeks writing the book.
All right, great. We'll pick up The Great Revolt by Salena Zito. Salena, thanks so much for joining us. Happy Thanksgiving. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Happy Thanksgiving.
And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.